Hello, welcome to the first ever episode of Crow's Shiny Things, where I feel like I'm already off to a crazy shaky start because I've had to do this I don't know, 12, 15, 18 times. I'm losing track. Hopefully, this will become a place where we talk pretty regularly about the game Flesh and Blood, and specifically about casual play, about kitchen table play for Flesh and Blood, because that's a thing that I am super excited and passionate about at the moment. I have been for quite some time now, at least a year, I guess. Flesh and Blood, this game, is an amazing game by Legend Story Studios. It is a head-to-head competitive card game, much like Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Pokemon. And in it, though, you get to play a hero who is bringing a set of tools against the opponent and trying to get the best of them on the battlefield. And it's really an interesting and fun puzzle every single hand. It makes for some super interesting deck building conundrums. It makes for some great play at the table between two people who want to have a fun time competing and surprising each other and having active play that never really lets up but has something interesting going on each and every turn. And I think that's really probably one of the things that makes Flesh and Blood such an amazing casual game. There aren't very many off turns with Flesh and Blood. There are really just a consistent series of really fun turns that are entertaining for both sides. Occasionally you get the oddball one-sided game, but at the level that I usually play at, most games are pretty even. Most games come to a point and hit a point of competition that is interesting throughout and come down to the wire, right? 1-2 point games are not uncommon and are part of what makes it so interesting, so fun. There are a lot of different topics to talk about it as a casual player, and I want to dedicate this space to talking about that. There are a lot of places on the internet right now to go and get truly fantastic information about Flesh and Blood as a competitive game. From Arsenal Pass, the Card Guys, the M&R podcast, On the Bobble, Attack Action. There's a lot of places where you can get really solid, reliable information about competitive play for Flesh and Blood. I'm not going to do that. It's not how I play the game. It's not why I play the game. And I think that I want to bring something a little bit differently to it. There are some other excellent resources out there that are more casual in focus. I think mostly of places like Red Zone Rogue or DM Armada, who I love and watch on a regular basis. But I think I have something to add to the conversation, and I'm looking forward to it. There is, at the heart of Flesh and Blood, a real competition that happens. The game is well known for being well tuned for competitive play. And in a lot of spaces, I think that becomes sort of the anti-casual game. And my impression is that a lot of people already have the idea that Flesh and Blood is not as casual friendly as maybe I think it is. And I want to really tease parts of that out as we go through this series, because I think in some ways the things that make this game really interesting for competition are also what keeps it interesting for the casual. And if the games are so well geared against each other, it means that I'm more likely to sit down and have a game that is really a good game, that is not just a blowout, that is not a one-sided play, with a variety of different players, and that we can tune those experiences pretty reasonably. For even with new players, I can get a fairly good game out of this just by what decks we sit down to play with, or how well we think about. Maybe we give one deck that is a little more new player friendly, or a little simpler to play, and then myself or another experienced player takes something that's a little bit harder to play. That sort of not competition, difficulty fine tuning is pretty easy in this, and it makes for a fun experience, even when I'm playing against someone that maybe doesn't understand it as much yet, but is trying to. And that's great. That's always fun. If I can get to the end of a game, and no matter what, both people can look at each other and say, "Wow, that was fun. I enjoyed that. It was close. It was interesting. We should rack it up again and play this, play it through again." That's fantastic, and that's what I want every time. The joy of that is that Flesh and Blood, at its heart, while it's a competitive and interesting puzzle, it's still a game, and that game is that's at the core of it all is really interesting, really fun, dynamic, ever changing in so many ways and on so many levels. It's not even just the gameplay that makes it so much fun, but all the things that go in around the gameplay. I started playing this just around Crucible of War. So for those of you who were tracking, I guess that was a year and a half ago, about a year ago. And the game has kept me excited, interested, engaged, consistently and constantly for the last year, a little over a year, because it keeps revealing new puzzles, new tricks, new concepts that with every release feels like a revelation. And as a player who isn't invested in reaching the highest levels of top 8 tables at a pro tour, but is really interested in a repeatable, replayable game at my kitchen table, wow, this offers a lot. So why am I maybe the person to listen to for this? Why come here to Crow's Shiny Things and hear me ramble about it? I think I'm going to bring an interesting, unique perspective to it. I've been playing for a very long time in the game space in general. I started with D&D way back in the late 70s. I was a fan of classic fantasy, Dungeons and Dragons. I played Boot Hill and Top Secret. For many, many, many years, role-playing games have been one of my absolute favorite and first choice go-tos. I love a good story. I love telling a good story. I love playing with my friends and building a story together. That stuff is amazing. I played White Wolf's games in all their iterations, starting with Vampire in the 1990s, like 90, 91 was when that came out, I guess. And really playing just about everything by White Wolf. I have played, well, really, I'm hard-pressed to find an early game that I haven't played in the role-playing space, role-playing games, tabletop role-playing game space. Later games, that's not as true, but I still love collecting them, playing them. Blades in the Dark, Powered by the Apocalypse games, Call of Cthulhu, the newer games by not Modifius, although Modifius is also putting out good stuff. The guys who make Vesson and the Alien game, great things going on there. So role-playing games, tabletop role-playing games have been my go-to for decades. But alongside that, starting in about 1994, I started playing Magic with Arabian Nights. We purchased Arabian Nights as our first set because they were completely out of the regular Magic packs when we discovered this game. So we bought a bunch of Arabian Nights and then kept going back to the store day after day going, hey, do you have any of the normal packs for this? We need the other cards. And finally, we could play that, right? We could get those and get a hold of them. But in 94, that was pre-internet. Really, I mean, there was some internet, but it was early. We didn't know anything. So we would take the cards and basically just shove them in a pile, maybe pare down to a 2 or 3 color deck as opposed to just putting all 5 colors into a stack. Bring it down to the bar and grab an empty table in the late afternoon and play Magic in between rounds of beers. That's the vibe that I love. I want to have a game where I can go down and play something and just enjoy it. I didn't stick with Magic for terribly long. I only played it for, 5, 6, maybe 7 years. Long enough to really enjoy it, but not long enough that I got into any sort of competitive scene with it or that I took it seriously. Along the way, between then and now, I've played a host of other card games such as Star Trek, Star Wars, Illuminati, Rage, that one Changeling game that White Wolf put out, VTES, Vampire the Eternal Struggle. I still have decks of Vampire the Eternal Struggle. In short, I look for casual, fun games to put down at the table. Currently in my arsenal, I've got Ashes, Reborn, the new Nisei, although I think they just changed their name, and now I can't remember what they changed their name to. Netrunner. I had the original Netrunner too, and the Netrunner Android, but the current Netrunner is really good. I played L5R in multiple incarnations. I guess the point is, I'm familiar with games and card games as a whole, and Flesh and Blood feels special. This game feels like the sort of game that grabs your attention and becomes the sort of thing you play for a decade straight before you start to think, wow, maybe I should look at something else. Like, it has its hooks in me. I kick myself for not getting into it at the start of Welcome to Wrath, and instead waiting until basically Crucible of War and getting Arcane Rising. In fact, the height of the pandemic, I sold cards for Magic, used that money to buy a bunch of Flesh and Blood cards, and I have been so happy that I did. I am generally in love with Azalea. I adore playing Azalea. She's not the best, but I have a lot of fun with her. I love playing Kasai. Yeah, those are probably my 2 favorites. I like Lexi a lot. She's a lot of fun to play as well. I am super excited for Outsiders, which at the time of this has just been sort of revealed that we're going to get 6 heroes. So if you're watching this in the future, just know that I'm going to be super excited when we get more information. And I really can't wait to talk about more things about Flesh and Blood. I am a teacher by trade. During COVID, we had a whole bunch of supplies that I ended up getting to do online teaching, and it's been kind of collecting dust. And so I decided to put it all to use to try and communicate the absolute joy that I feel playing this game. I'm hoping you guys will stick around and listen to what I have to say every now and then, and that we can all have fun with a bunch of cards. So I guess that's it for now. Hopefully I'll be posting once a week. That's my goal. And I want to keep these relatively short. Like I said, I'm a casual. I don't want to spend hours and hours on these things. 15, half an hour, somewhere in that neighborhood. That's what you can hopefully expect. That said, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. And I will hopefully talk to you again soon.